Hey everybody, John here from the esports department, going over tonight's LPL LCK slate, 4 games. The kind of slate I like too, because we got some very good teams playing each other and some very bad teams playing each other, which in general is better than good team playing bad team. There is one of those on this slate, but in general, we have some decent matchups here, I think, where the teams are fairly evenly mixed up, where you might be able to get some ownership spread, which is always my favorite thing. I just want the ownership spread out. I don't want one team X huge percent owned. So as long as there's enough close matchups to split the ownership, I'm good to go. Even last night, JDG against WE, I was super confident in JDG. I played them in all my lineups in the big tournaments. I hedged a little WE in the 15, but even then, JDG's like 20-something% owned, and that's because they're in a matchup that's close enough that other people can take the other side. So WE's sitting at 20% owned as well. When you have a matchup that's like, huge favorite against big underdog, they're like 50 or 60% owned. That takes away all the value. But JDG had great ownership last night. So did WE. If you played WE, like either side of the matchup is good to play because they're splitting the ownership from each other. Just depends on which one you like more. But going into the games for tonight starts with Seoul Haewon Prince plus 130. They are 1-3 on the season against KT, who is minus 180, and they are 1-3 on the season. So two pretty bad LCK teams. The stats are going to be very comparable. We got 1643 gold per minute for Seoul Haewon, 1664 for KT, so just a slight advantage for KT. Gold differential per minute, so close, minus 189 for KT, minus 186 for Seoul Haewon. First blood, first turret, even pretty similar there with an advantage in first blood towards Seoul Haewon. Gold differential at 15, minus 991 to minus 1001, so 10 gold differential per minute, or at 15 off. And then the only real differentiator is damage per minute, where Seoul Haewon has 1700 and 1866 for KT, so a lot more damage to champions for KT. They're trying to fight a little bit more. Looking at the KPWs and DPLs, 15.6 for Seoul Haewon, 18 for KT in the DPL, so you're looking at 33.6, 16.5, 16.8 expectation there. DPL, 19.2 for Seoul Haewon, 13.3 for KT, so pretty low on the KT side there. It does average out to about 16.3 as an expectation for them, but I think I'm more likely to lean towards a team that's a little higher on the KPW as well. Especially if the opponent's DPL isn't that much lower. I think Seoul Haewon probably, when they win, will score more than KT will. And I'll say, looking from the stats, Seoul Haewon's pretty cheap tonight, and their stats are extremely comparable. It's so close in like every metric that Seoul Haewon seems like they make a pretty live play for me. KT just hasn't got it figured out yet. They have some players on their roster, like they've got guys, but they just haven't figured it out yet this season. I do think they're a favorite for a reason, but given that they've looked kind of mediocre so far this season, the stats are pretty comparable. I think Seoul Haewon's a very legitimate underdog play. KT would make an all-right play on a normal slate. I'm not sure I'm messing with them on this slate. We have some other places that are going to provide a little bit more value, I think. GenG versus T1. Here, let's look something up while we're live on stream here, live on the video. Let's have a look at the LCK 2020 spring scoreboards. I want to say when these two teams played each other in spring, it was pretty low scoring. It's going to take me a minute to find this now. I don't remember what week they played in. Let's see. Yes, I get lucky. Spring 2020. That was their best of 5. T1 won 2-1. 18 kills in game 1, or 18 kills in game 3. Only 8 kills in game 2 and 12 kills for GenG in the first game. So a pretty low-scoring series, really. SKT kind of turns it up at the end with the 18 in game 3. But a pretty low-scoring series in general there. They played in February, and it was 9 kills in game 3. 8 in Game 2 and 12 in Game 3, so low scoring there as well. And then in their best of 5, it was 21, 13, 11. So the average kill count between these two teams is extremely low. I just wanted to look at that because they have very bizarre stats. GenG is minus 105, 4-1 on the season. SKT, sorry, my phone's just going nuts. 4-1 on the season. T1, 3-2 on the season, minus 130. 1862 gold per minute for GenG, 1858 for T1. So super close. Gold differential per minute, 157 for GenG, 145 for T1. So a little advantage for GenG there. First blood and first turret, 77-69 versus 61-46. So just better objective controls early in the game for GenG. Gold differential at 15, 846 for GenG, 811 for T1. Damage per minute, 1908 for GenG, 1838 for T1. So the stats are just leaning GenG in every setup. And to the best of my memory, they are the more expensive team of the two. T1 6200 at top, GenG 5600. So yeah, pretty big differential. So SKT has a pretty big, or T1 has a pretty big differential when it comes to pricing, which just makes it kind of a slam GenG play, to be honest with you, as far as GPPs go. Better in every metric, better this season so far, significantly cheaper. I think they're going to be probably reasonably popular as well. The odds also tell you that they're a pretty decent play. They're a minus 105, very close to the minus 130 for T1. But GenG makes like a smash GPP play tonight. KPW 17.7. This is the big problem. SKT's death per loss is 11.6. And from what we saw from their previous matchups, it looks like that's pretty accurate. Like, this is maybe a little on the low side, but their previous matchups look like they kind of went this way. On the other side, T1 has a 19.1 kill per win. I think this is hyper inflated. I don't think this is going to end up being accurate at all at the end of the season, but that's where they're at right now. And GenG has a 17 DPL. GenG definitely has been bloodier this season than we've ever seen them before, but I think this is a macro fest. We'll have to see if I'm wrong about this, but GenG is going to be a super smash GPP play, and I think it's a play where you're either going to want to be really heavy on them or fade them, because this matchup has the potential to look just like their other ones. At the same time, if they really are new teams, like, these are huge numbers for them. This was not what GenG looked like last season, and this is not what T1 looked like last season. If you think that this is more accurate, what they're doing this season is they changed their play style, then I would get all in on this matchup, because GenG's an underdog and every stat favors them. And their play this season in general, their record favors them. So, great matchup, very interesting. Going to be a lot of fun to watch. Probably something in DFS that you should either be all in on or avoiding. Next up, E-Star at minus 130. They are 2-4 on the season versus Vici. They are 2-3 on the season and minus 105. So another very similar odd setup to the SKT GenG series. And let's see how the stats play out for this one. E-Star gold per minute 1794 to 1713 for Vici. Gold differential per minute plus 18 for E-Star, minus 60 for Vici. First blood, first turret, 4780 versus 6464. So more first bloods for Vici, but more first turrets for E-Star. And damage per minute, 1920 to 1828. So all the stats pretty much pointing, and gold differential at 15, only plus 389 for E-Star, 569 for Vici. So all the stats except for the gold differential at 15 point towards E-Star. The Vici does tend to take kind of what we call the sinner drafts, where they have like specific early game champions, things that are very good at the beginning of the game. So it doesn't surprise me that their gold differential at 15 is a little better than E-Star's. E-Star seems like a great play to me. Looking at the KPW DPL, 18 kills for E-Star on average and about 18 deaths for Vici. It's a pretty big expectation. Vici, when they're winning, is not scoring almost any points. 11.2 kills per win to the 19.5 of E-Star. E-Star is going to fight, I think. So if Vici wins these games, I think Vici will score points, even though their kill per win is pretty low. For me, though, I think E-Star should be a huge favorite in this matchup. Vici Gaming playing Zika and Leon, who seem to be what they're going to go with for the moment, but they haven't looked very good when they have been playing. E-Star's lineup in general, I think, just kind of got off to a little bit of a slow start. They've had some competitive matchups. I like E-Star to win this one, and I think they're going to make a pretty good play as well. Ringing the doorbell on me there. I do think E-Star makes a pretty strong play in this position, and they're going to be a favorite with a decently sized expectation. Vici, if they do win, I think they'll probably be one of the highest scoring teams on the slate. E-Star does like to give up a lot of points when they do lose. So a high target matchup for me here. I think a better target matchup than either one on the LCK. This one just makes a lot of sense to be involved with. The last matchup on the slate, LNG plus 650. They're 2-5 on the season against Top Esports minus 1600. They're 6-0 on the season. There's not a lot to say about this one. I'm not even going to bother too much with the stats. You can see them here. TES 1906 to the 1681 of LNG. Goal differential per minute plus 246 for TES, minus 118 for LNG. First blood, first turret, 50-50 for TES and 50-31 for LNG. Goal differential at 15, plus 1267 for top, minus 615 for LNG. And damage per minute, one of the highest I've seen for TES, 2188 to 1866. The kill per win, death per loss, Type Esports is all over it. 18.1 kills per win, 19 deaths per loss. LNG has 19 kills per win, a much lower death per loss. So I think this matchup is one that has a lot of bust potential for Top Esports. They're going to score, but I don't think they're going to score huge that often. LNG is not a team you can see in their death per loss that's like going to fight you at every objective when they're behind. And Top Esports should run this matchup over pretty hard. So I think it makes a lot of sense to go with Top Esports as a small stack mixed with something like E-Star or Vici or T1 or GenG. GenG makes some sense. Even messing around with somebody like Solheim Prince could be a thing. 4 stacks of Top Esports are going to be the most popular thing on the slate, and I think there's a lot of like sort of bust potential, at least where they don't hit like 100 points, they just hit like 80s or something like that. So I think they kind of make a better secondary stack when you're factoring in things like ownership. Let's take a look at ownership. This isn't a matchup I wanted to talk about too much. I mean, Top Esports is significantly better than LNG. The only real reason to play LNG is if you're just trying to get insane ownership leverage in something like the $15. Maybe you throw some LNG in there, but in general, I wouldn't be messing around with that. So looking at ownerships, Top Esports, LNG, Vici, E-Star, GenG, SKT, Solheim Prince, and KT. So lowest owned team on the slate has got to be LNG. After that, I'm guessing KT. They're an LCK underdog in a matchup where... Oh, not KT, I'm sorry. I meant Solheim 1. They're an LCK underdog in a pretty bad... Like, they're in a decent position, but it's not the, like, sexiest of the matchups. I think it's pretty fair to say that they're probably going to be fairly low-owned. KT, honestly, might be the next lowest owned, because I think people are just going to fade away from that matchup in general. Top Esports is definitely going to be first. And then it comes to mixing these up. I think, honestly, SKT might end up being here. They have favorite pricing, and they're playing against a team that's pretty close to them as far as their odds, and the stats are pointing the other way. I don't know how many people are looking at the stats. I might be completely overestimating that. Vici Gaming, probably around here, and then probably GenG and E-Star and Top. I think this is a very accurate list except for SKT. I think this is, if you took SKT out of here and just puts these 7, I think that's going to be like almost 100% of the time it's going to be right. The only question for me is where SKT lands in the group. They could be just above Vici, they could be above GenG. I think it's going to be tough to figure out where SKT lands in here. Something tells me that people are not going to want to pay full like favorite price for SKT in this spot. but I could be wrong. I would definitely lean towards that being kind of pretty accurate. Unfortunately, while I'm in the middle of the video here, they just added a bunch of LEC players because they're setting up their LEC slate tomorrow. Sorry, take it just a second here, guys, because I got to go put all this stuff in correctly now. If they're just going to add like 200 players to the pool in the middle of the video. Okay, let's just do it this way. I can just do it team by team. Okay. So yeah, I think this is going to be pretty accurate ownerships other than SKT, where I just don't know where SKT is going to fit in here. They're going to be somewhere in this range. No, somewhere in this range, but I don't know which position. They could be higher than GenG and VG. They might be lower than GenG and VG. Might be in the middle. Looking at the favorites for tonight, we've got T1, Top Esports, E-Star, right? Yes. When they have those super close odds, sometimes I forget which one's which. And then KT is the fourth. So looking at projections for the favorites, E-Star projects the best, Top Esports next, T1, and then KT in last. Same here, except for KT and T1 have switched around in the jungle. In the mid lane, stays the same, E-Star, Top Esports, T1, and KT. At AD Carry, aiming actually jumps up at AD Carry and passes Jackie Love, and that is kind of normal. I leave Jackie Love out of a lot of my TES stacks when I can. He's not only beloved by everyone in the community, but in comparison to Knight, he tends to underscore by a decent amount, so it makes a lot of sense to leave him out. It's worth noting that Wink and Fen are only off by 0.1 in their projection, and Knight significantly outscores Jackie, so mid-captains tonight make a lot of sense if you're going with the favorites, if that's something that fits. I haven't looked at the pricing, but if it's something that fits, you could try the mid-captains, maybe messing around with the team slot. At the support position, E-Star actually out-projecting, yeah, they're at the top as usual, sorry. For some reason I got confused about that. And Top Esports in second, KT and T1 coming in last. So T1 and KT just definitely significantly under-projected versus the LPL matchups tonight. That is kind of how I feel about it. I think the LPL matchups tonight are really good and just really worth targeting. For a cash lineup, if you're going with just biggest favorites on the slate, you'd be looking at KT and Top, which would get you 596.6. Let's put it down over here. But I don't think we really want to be on KT. I don't even think they're like a big favorite in their matchup. Let's see what happens if you do E-Star and Top Esports. 611.5. That's significantly better. If you did Top Esports and T1, you'd get 590. And I think it's a no-brainer that you're going to play Top Esports in cash today. It's pretty much unavoidable to play Top Esports in cash. However, who you pair them with is a big deal. And honestly, I think E-Star is the person that I want to pair them with today. It's still support captain to get them together. But for me, I think that E-Star matchup is actually more lopsided than the odds are showing. I think E-Star is really more like minus 200 here, and the second biggest favorite on the slate as far as I'm concerned. So for cash lineups, I think it makes the most sense to go with the E-Star Top Esports lineup. It has the highest ceiling, and I actually think it's the most likely thing to have happen as well. Looking at the dogs real quick, just to see what the scoring looks like. Highest projected LNG if they beat Top. That's probably going to be the case in every lane, I would guess. Solheim 1, Prince coming in second, and then Vichi's actually third, so they're actually under projected, at least at support, versus Solheim 1. Same thing at AD Carry, Solheim 1 out projecting Vici. GenG just at the bottom, it's projecting kind of the same kind of matchup we've seen between GenG and T1 in the past. Vici in third, GenG, BDD, having such a great season. He's projecting all the way up at second, with Mickey projecting last for Solheim 1. So if you're playing Solheim 1, Mickey seems like the guy that it's telling you to leave out. And then jungle, Leon projects pretty decently against E-Star, but it's LNG at the top as usual. And same thing here. So I think it's kind of a matter of, when it comes to the ceiling for underdogs, LNG definitely has the best one. It looks like GenG is definitely the lowest. And then it's just a back and forth between Solheim 1 and VG as far as who's scoring the best in a win from those teams. Seems like the kind of night where you might try to get away from top esports in the GPPs, or try to get lower-owned combinations of them in the GPPs. I think one of the smartest things you can do is, there's two underdogs tonight that I think are both very playable teams, Solheim 1 and GenG. Why not use the team slot from those two teams to try to increase, when you're playing GPP, to try to increase the upside of the favorite stacks of E-Star and top esports? I think that's something that I'm going to be looking at tonight. We'll see how that goes, but that's definitely something that I think is intriguing tonight as far as GPP, mixing in those underdog team slots. Those teams don't necessarily project to score that well, but I think they win a decent amount of the time, and that makes their team slots pretty useful in trying to get better stacks of the other favorites. So that's all for me, guys. It might be a little bit on the short side, but the contractors are here now, and they're going to get started for the day, so I better hop off here, and I have some other videos to do this afternoon. Very interesting slate. I'm very interested to see where it goes. So good luck with it, guys, and I will talk to you later.